I'd like to call tonight's meeting of the Deer Valley Governing Board special meeting work session to order at 6:12. Let the roll call show all members are present. Dr. Z, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, everyone. You may be seated. Can I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We're going to start off 2A, fiscal year 2025. Mr. Miglorino has a presentation for us. Is this an interactive where we can stop you as we go and ask questions, or do you prefer us to wait till the end? All right. Hi. Just wanted to stop you real quick. Is it fair to say that we are trying to have as much of a carry forward as possible in the event that the M&O does not get passed again in November so that we can continue to adjust moving forward? Is that why because some people might look at this, well, $10 million carry forward and $11 million cuts. Why do we have to even consider cuts? But we're trying to manage a carry forward in case we lose another $11 million, correct?
We'll also have the loss of students as well, projected.
Right. Okay. 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 Thank you. Appreciate it.
So to follow up, basically carry forward is just a buffer and give you options. Like what's the basic purpose of a carry forward?
Your mic is not working, so you need to use this. They can't hear you online.
I've been asked to start over from the first slide. No. Sorry. Apparently this mic was not working. I wouldn't consider it a buffer. Remember, our M&O budget is over $283 million. And so it's very difficult to spend all the way to the last penny, the exact amount. In this case, we are intentionally trying to create as much carry forward as possible because of the financial situation that we're in for fiscal year 26. But you would be more concerned, you should be more concerned as a public citizen or even a board member if we were to spend more than we're allowed. And we have not done that in my tenure here. So I wouldn't consider it a buffer, but these are strategic decisions that we're making specifically due to the situation, the financial situation we'll be in fiscal year 26.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I started to say, and I didn't realize you were trying to stop me. I apologize. I told you I wanted it to be interactive, and then I just kind of I didn't know that. I need to get the signals down.
It's interactive if we call upon you.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been in the batter's box, apparently. What I started to say is we originally had a conversation regarding changing class size, class loads for next year. We decided against that because, again, it had a very minimal difference in terms of how we would end up ultimately staffing. So these are the same staffing standards that we have used over time. So nothing has changed in terms of those numbers. So no new information essentially there. We have built into the FY26 budget to move 25% of the district additional assistance, or what we sometimes refer to as capital, into M&O to be able to have, again, additional M&O resources for next year. And then there's a fairly significant increase in the cash accounts built into this. That's in large part due to the fact that the cash account balances have grown. This is money in addition to what the state formula generates for us. And those 5 cash funds include everything from the Instructional Improvement Fund, sometimes referred to as the Gaming Compact Funds, in which all districts share a portion of that, our Medicaid and Public Schools Fund, or sometimes referred to as MIPS for short, our Facility Rental Fund, our Community Education Fund, and finally our Indirect Cost Fund. Those are the 5 cash funds that we're using. In addition to that, because we did increase some of the participation fees for next year, we are including some of those in what we're building for next year. So essentially, we're seeing the general budget limit go from $283 million down to $267 million in fiscal year 26. A portion of that has to do with the loss of students, and a portion of it has to do with the override being reduced by 1/3. So you can see those numbers here: $11 million for the override, and $6 million for just over $6 million for the student loss. That's about, again, 900 students that we're projecting for next year. So again, just a reminder, we are funded on current year funding. That is a guess as to what that number will be. We won't even know a year from now if that's the actual number, but we'll be much closer to knowing what it is a year from now than we do when we actually adopt the budget next month. On the expense side, as you're aware, we did include a furlough day for all employees that were not 9-month classified employees. If we would have included all the 9-month classified employees, that would have taken the $1.1 million to $1.2 million. It was just over $100,000 difference for the classified employee, our 9-month classified employees. They just didn't have a day that was opportune for us to be able to remove as a furlough day in their work calendar. There's district office reductions here. I'm showing the FTE number of 5.5 FTE, just over $425,000. And in addition to that, I just wanted to give special recognitions to Student Support Services. They have been working diligently to also reduce additional costs that we have as a district for outside services to service students, as well as some of the tuition costs that we have for students, which would be in addition to the $425,000 you're seeing here. We are anticipating a reduction of about 51 FTE in teachers. Again, there's 900 fewer students that we need to serve, and we have some migration, so larger student numbers in the intermediate and high school grades than we do in the primary grades, and the caseloads numbers are higher in those upper grades, so we need fewer teachers to service even the same number of kids. I'm going to pause there.
When you mentioned the shout out to SSS, I remember hearing that that department was going to try to reduce by 20%. So since it's in addition to the 425,000, any ballpark as to what that could be if you're going off the 20% goal? What additional monies would be in that district office reduction total?
Yeah, President Carver, Dr. Pack, it would be going to be hard to quantify a number, but it will be likely to be several $100,000 worth of reductions. It's really going to depend on the individuals that we find to replace the outside contracted services and what their contract amount ends up being compared to what the contracted service amount would be. But it and any of that money, let's say there is some additional sizable savings for next year, I would contend, it would be my recommendation, that those monies be used for carry forward into FY27, and then we can adjust knowing more what is actually gets realized from those actual savings.
And just to follow up on the district office reductions, the 5.5 full-time employees, with all due respect, with you leaving, the next person filling your shoes presumably would make slightly less than you do, so will we not see a reduction in district office dollars with staff changes? Significant staff changes?
Yeah, the FTE there is the persons. That's not the value of, that's the whole, which includes parts like that. But we won't know that exact number until all of those come. But you're on the right path as far as, it's no different than special education when they take the contractual and change it with a normal, regular person. There is a savings, but that number is close, but not, and we probably have it in, we can get greater detail as we learn more. Maybe Jim can fill you in on that.
And I mean, at the risk of maybe embarrassing myself, I don't think there's going to be a sizable difference between what I'm being paid and what the incoming person in my replacement will be paid.
He's retired. So he's only paid 80%. Well, and probably not anymore, but. So he's a return to work retiree. So it won't be a significant,
Right, but she's just talking about the concept when
but
you,
it's not going to be a significant difference between him and, because Heather's not retired.
Okay, I see.
that 11 million is from Miglerino, actually.
Yeah.
And you're going to save on that.
All right, thank you.
To your point, Dr. Pack, we had over 100 people retire, educators, and we had 45 people graduate from TPP, right? So I mean, your concept is right on. Though we're losing a lot of people that have been here for enough time that they logically are making more money than the people that are coming in. So there's an unrealized savings until we get there, kind of a thing that's going to occur, which always helps us with our carry forward. It's the pleasant surprise at the end of the rainbow that we hope for, but that you really can't budget for because you don't know what you got until you get there.
But we'll get to see that small pot of gold number later.
Later, as in during the
Future.
budget revision process, yes. In May of 2026, yes.
Okay,
That's when that would get realized.
thank you.
Yeah, Melissa could talk about that. Dr. McCusker.
Okay. Okay. Hit them both. Okay, I'm stereophonic. Mr. Carver, Ms. Simichek, in respect to the reductions, we had a focused approach in student support services, in contracted services. So, for example, if we need a school psychologist and there's a vacancy and we are unable to find a school psychologist, what we do our very best is, of course, try to hire a district employee. They will always be less cost than a contractor. The high dollar positions are really school psychologists, registered nurses, and speech language pathologists. So we have made a concerted effort to attract, with the support of human resources, to attract district personnel. They come to us not necessarily for the money, but they come to us for that family feel. We do a really good job with professional development and support. And we also provide incidental benefit. They have a larger group of other professionals to work with. Mr. Carver, Ms. Simichek, absolutely not. So the focus is always on students and to assure that we are not cutting costs that would affect students. Again, I'm a huge proponent. I believe that district personnel, because they're invested in the district and they're invested in Deer Valley, will provide better services because they're part of the community.
Just to follow up with that, is SSS looking to find better ways to transport kiddos and save money there? Because it seems like the transportation, I don't know if you have to work with the transportation department, but that seems really high. I don't know if that's in this. Is that part of the 20% or is that another area where we're going to try to save some money?
Mr. Carver, Dr. Pack, that's an excellent question. We work with our transportation department sometimes daily to assure that we're providing services. It is a challenging aspect. Mr. Miglerino could certainly comment on that as well as he supervises transportation. finding routing and supports within our very large school district, which has many square miles, is challenging. However, I know with the board's decision to actually support our bus drivers and increase the rate of pay, we're very hopeful that that will maintain our district personnel in the district. We do contract services for transportation to the best of our ability. We try to do it at a minimum because, again, we are huge proponents for the fact that Deer Valley bus drivers are going to be superlative to contracted drivers. But we do have to utilize contract in that domain.
Thank you.
It was my understanding that the contracted services were already released. Yes, no?
Mr. Carver, Ms. Fisher, I didn't hear your question, believe it or not.
The contracted services, the contractors have already been released?
Mr. Carver, Ms. Fisher, some of the contractors have been released, correct?
And I agree with you. It is always better to have your own staff. But are we getting equivalent credentials? So are we their actual speech pathologists, not say an assistant or an aide or,
Mr. Carver, Ms. Fisher, good question. Yes, they are commensurate with their qualifications. For example, you can't function as a speech language pathologist without your master's degrees and your C's. So they do have the appropriate credentials.
Okay. Can you, how many positions have we filled, and are they split between campuses? Are they roving? Are they...
Mr. Carver, Mrs. Fisher, in respect to specific positions, because we have replaced quite a few contracted staff with district personnel. For example, our school psychologists, we have reduced contracted school psychologists by 7. That's significant, and replaced them with district personnel. Most often in Deer Valley, in respect to school size and level of need, we have a school psychologist that maintains support at one location. For some of our larger campuses, like Barry Goldwater High School, we actually have a full-time psychologist and another full-time psychologist who provides 5 days of assist. So it's specific to the campus's needs and students' needs.
Okay, so we reduced 7. How many did we fill?
Mr. Carver, Mrs. Fisher, in respect to the psychologists, we replaced all 7 contractors with 7 district psychologists.
Can we get a list of positions, like what we moved off of contract, what we hired? And I'm not sure if do we have an idea of what vacancies are currently existing by site? What positions? Are we merging positions? Are we considering moving positions? Let's say we need somebody at a campus and there's a position here that we could eliminate and they could go back to be a teacher. Do we have that kind of a list that you could provide? Yeah, no, I'm really looking at, honestly, we're not in the same situation we've ever been in. We really need to look at where we can cut, and I don't want to cut people. So if there's vacancies that we potentially can not fill, I would prefer doing it that way. So I would like to know what our vacancies are. And I'd like to know what positions are potential to merge or to be, that type of efficiency so we can, and if there's new positions that are necessary for the 100% benefit of the students, are there positions under consideration, and what does that look like? I just don't think we're in the same situation we were in before, and when doing the budget, finding out about it a year later, whether or not we could have or should have cut.
Well, that's
because we're not looking at $11 million, we're looking at $17 million with our reduction. And so that's,
clarification to the points that you are making. That is exactly what we have kept in mind in reductions. So what we have eliminated out of the budget is what is not essential. So we do not have extra positions that we previously had, because in some cases we had grant funding that was there that is no longer there. So those have been eliminated. And then we have tightened staffing, and the campuses are aware of that. That
So,
doesn't mean, though, that we were tight beyond what the certified manual prescribes, as we explained to you process, but we were tight in the sense of extra requests. It is normal for them to request a little extra here or there for a particular reason, and we did not grant that type of request.
All right. I think that would be good for us to know, to be able to know exactly where we're making the need to. The other thing I did have a question. Most of the districts that are in trouble right now, or got in trouble, was because of the inappropriate way they handled ESSER. Are we good on that, or?
Inappropriate way they handle what?
ESSER. They didn't, there's funds that are ongoing, there's funds that are not. You don't put a fund that's not gonna ongo in a position that needs to ongo. So that's more, it seems like what has occurred.
Yeah, that's really what we pay our cabinet to do and the superintendent to do, is to find
Yeah, but
out
we have
what
to
do we
approve
cut
this
here.
budget. And
Correct, but
and to be
that's what you
perfectly
pay us
honest,
for.
The whole reason
That's
Isaac
why
is
you're
in the
seeing it
situation they're
51.
in
No.
is because their board rubber stamped whatever the superintendent wanted, and now they're $33 million.
If you look
in
at
the
these
hole.
numbers, they are not headed in the Isaac direction. We're making the appropriate cuts.
Isaac didn't think they were headed in that
I
direction. either.
think what
Yeah.
Mrs. Fisher's asking, if I can jump in, Mrs. Fisher's, we discussed clawback not too long ago. The federal government was looking at clawing back the ESSER funds that hadn't been spent within a certain period of time. Are we still holding that back someplace in case they come for ours, or have we made arrangements to spend it before they get to us?
President Carver, the ESSER funds were extinguished for us at the end of September of 2024. And so most of the plans that we had with ESSER were one-time funding decisions that we made that actually were not ongoing commitments. If you'll recall, there were several years in a row where we did one-time stipends for our employees. Those did not attach to salary and were not continued. We also were involved in things like our Jumpstart program to deal with remediation due to the pandemic and the loss of learning that took place. And we've been able to scale those things back on a much smaller scale, or find an alternative funding source. So I think our choice of what we use for ESSER funds would not put us in a similar situation that you may have seen in some headlines. And then just as a reminder, ESSER funds were distributed based on free and reduced lunch counts. And so because of the affluence of our district, we received far fewer funds when it came to ESSER than many of our neighboring districts that have a higher free and reduced lunch count. So I don't think that we're in that situation. And maybe to Ms. Fisher's point, and I think Ms. Moffitt was alluding to this, we are not planning on riffing anybody as part of the fiscal year 26 budget. We think we can handle all of the adjustments to FTE based through attrition. So,
Okay. So we don't have any hanging. That's the simple question, is we don't have anything hanging, any positions hanging in ESSER or anything like that.
Correct.
Okay. So if we could get an idea of what our vacancies are, any positions that are potential for merging, any new positions, just kind of get a list of what those are. We already know if there's not ESSER funding, that's good. And then a list with knowing what contractors we've cut and that we've been able to replace them. Because that is one of the things that will definitely impact our kiddos, especially the special needs kids. So
And just
far.
for Mr. Botfeld, I'm sorry, are you done?
That was it so far.
For Mr. Botfeld and anybody else listening, ESSER, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief is what that stands for. My question is, do we have any of those funds that we haven't used that we're able to retain and use? And if we do, how much?
President Carver, Dr. Pack, no, there's no longer available to be used after September, the end of September. So all of those monies are no longer available for us.
But the money we got from that, we've used, or do we have it in an account?
Oh no, we used it and it had to be expended by the end of September
Okay.
in 2024, or else it was forfeited at that point.
Thank you.
I think a super important thing, I'm going to repeat it, what he said, if you didn't catch it, is we made strategic decisions. Many districts did not. They tied it to salaries, and so their salaries went up. And then obviously when the money ran out, they were stuck trying to backfill. So we made a strategic decision at the very beginning that we weren't going that route. But we did use it to reward staff or encourage staff or incentivize staff with one-time payments. Therefore, it's not tied to the salary, so we wouldn't get caught when the money. But we made that as a team, made that decision early on, so we wouldn't get stuck as a district.
And I would just encourage the board members, you may or may not have noticed, and I believe it was the last Friday update when, like, if we look at the district office reductions, 5.5 FTEs, everybody by now knows that we lost our CTE manager at the district level. Doesn't matter how you look at it, we didn't replace some position because now we have somebody that currently works for the district that has applied to take on a position that would incorporate their job plus the CTE manager's job. So there is on paper a savings of 1 FTE because we've combined positions. And so if I'm speaking out of turn, please feel free to throw something at me, but would that be the right thought process?
President Carver, not the wrong thought process, but there is going to be an FTE that's going to replace the person that's moving into the CTE program. There probably will be a delta savings between the person that replaced them and the person that will be leaving, but
Okay.
we still need somebody to oversee the remaining programs at Aspire, and that person is so it's going to be an FTE count that would be the same, but
Okay.
there will be a dollar savings
Okay.
projected from that.
Which is some of what we were talking about earlier with older teachers retiring and younger teachers coming in at a lower rate. We realize a savings every year because of movements like that, but it's nothing that we can necessarily budget for because we don't see it till we get to the end of the rainbow. Kind of, I mean, you can't tell me right now we're going to save $20,000 on that position, but by this time next year, we would have said, by the way, we got this $20,000 kiss because of what we did back in.
That is correct.
Okay.
And we actually coined a phrase for it. It is position attrition and it just has a catchy ring to it, I guess.
Right.
That we do calculate to be able to find out exactly how much of a differential there is between what we budgeted for in the positions and what the actual expense ends up being.
Just to follow up on that, to clarify, maybe I read it Friday update too quickly, that CTE manager position with the putting two jobs together, that person is now going to be a director though, isn't it? And that's a new director that we haven't had that director spot, or have we had that? Because then you're going to get a new manager to fill that position, so then you're going to have the director.
President Carver, Dr. Pack, it's a reorganization of two positions in the CIA department. So we had a director of online and virtual learning that oversaw the Aspire, which was a K-12 online program,
Right.
and we had a manager of CTE. That reorganization is shifting because, if you remember, we have let go of K-5 Aspire. So that program, that school is a 612 school now. And we just flipped the manager and the director position. So the director position will oversee online, virtual, and career and technical education programs, as well as overseeing all of the programs, just oversight of the Innovation Center. That particular person, Juliet Amara, is stepping out of Aspire, and a manager position will be posted in place of her. So 2 positions, they just are changing in some of the responsibilities that they've had in the past.
Okay, thank you.
And while we're still talking about FTEs, so we got 5.5 FTEs in district office reductions and 51 FTEs in teacher reductions. I'm not sure if this is going to come out of my mouth correctly, but would that ratio of reduction pan out to the same level of the ratio of staff that we have in the district? Does that make sense? So
I understand the question,
Okay.
President Carver. I would say probably not, because the driving force behind the reduction
it's two
of
different driving
teachers
forces. Yeah.
is the changing demographics of the
Right.
students, right? So, we don't lose a principal when we lose 10 kids at a school.
Right.
We still have the principal, for example. But if we lose 20 kids at a school, we might be able to lose a teacher, right? But we
Right.
still have the principal.
So I understood the difference between the driving forces behind them. I guess what I was looking to get was, do we know the percentages? So 51 FTE out of how much of our teachers? 5.5 FTE out of the district out of how many FTEs that would fall under that umbrella? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I would say on the teaching staff, it's a little north of 2.5%.
Okay.
51 out of 1750, something like that. I don't know what district number to use to divide that 5.5 in, because those positions include positions that aren't just here at the district office. They are a myriad of personnel. So I don't know what to use for the
No,
denominator.
I understand. Okay.
And that's part of why I asked for the FTEs, the vacancies, what our FTEs are, what our vacancies are, if there's positions that are combining, and new positions, if there's new positions. I'm not asking for people, I'm just asking for like the positions and what's empty. Because that gives us a better idea of looking, and then we can look at an overall, so that we can calculate what those changes are. And we could see potential areas for adjustment, and ask meaningful questions rather than just guessing. Because with these numbers, we're just guessing. There's no way for us to know what would be a meaningful adjustment. So
Did you
I
have
just
a
think
question?
that information would really help.
Do you have a question?
I have a question. This is going to sound a little odd, but assuming there are 20,000 new homes going into the district, which I think is a fair estimate at this point, what are we doing to prepare for the impact that those new homes will have on student population?
President Carver, Mr. Botfeld, I would say it is probably fair to say that there could be 20,000 new homes added to the district. I don't think any of those, not a significant number of those, are going to be realized next year in fiscal year 26. So nothing to prepare for it in this budget. But in terms of long-term considerations, one of the things that we do look at is it is expensive to retool our most precious asset, which is our human capital. So that's why we don't want to unnecessarily get rid of individuals, but we also have to live within our constraints, within the limited resources that we have. So we will have to make adjustments for next year as we're proposing, and we do need to be cognizant in future years when some of those 20,000 homes start to get built out. It will probably take close to a decade for all 20,000 homes to be built out. Just in terms, so it's not going to happen all at once. But we do need to be cognizant that we are going to have to right size the district for when that does happen.
Thank you. Let's see if we can go on.
Okay. I believe we've talked about this previously. We are talking about a freeze to capital spending. So we have shared with the the staff members that the capital allocation they had for this year would be an allocation that would have to extend beyond this year into next year. We are resurrecting what we refer to as the essential capital request form. So if they did have a capital need that was not able to be funded with the limited capital without having an additional allocation for FY26, they could apply to that program. And the program would have $500,000 to be able to fund those, emergency or unfundable needs that may arise throughout the course of the year. That will allow us to do the transfer of our district additional assistance into M&O. That's where that additional money is going to happen. That's what you see there. We are utilizing a number of cash reserves, including the cash accounts that I mentioned earlier. I named those 5 cash accounts, including the increase of the fee schedule that was just approved. Other post-employee benefit, OPEB, we do have a savings account that's designated for the retiree benefit to our employees. We believe that expense for next year will be $4.2 million. We are planning to take that full year's expense out of the OPEB account, a savings account that we have specifically designed for OPEB liability. And then we've also, as we've referred to in the benefit recommendation, we're going to utilize some of the Valley Schools net position that we have to be able to not have to make other adjustments to our employee benefits on top of what sacrifices our employees are making for next year. And then you can see the increase in the participation fee that's noted that I mentioned above. So you can see we get very close to the $17.4 million in those adjustments. And what that looks like might be a little bit more familiar for at least those that have seen the goal book or the budget book that we allocate each year. This is the first page or it's at the first page after the cover page, I guess, of the goal book. This is in draft form at this point. But you can see we're within $167,000 of balancing next year's budget for the gold book. That is with the $10 million worth of carry forward and the loss of override funds. So you can see the override funds there at $22 million compared to the $33 million that we enjoy in this fiscal year. So we're very close to having all of the big picture pieces worked out with the information we shared. This is what that kind of looks like. The decrease of 51 FTE and the increase of classified staff of 1.6. The 1.6 is very negligible. That is a net number in both cases because it does include the addition of special education specialized programs in both the certified and classified numbers. And I know Dr. McCusker might be able to correct me. I think on the certified side, that's 7 FTE increase at 6 different campuses. And then on the classified numbers, I believe it's 14 behavior techs, FTE-wise. And as we mentioned already, and I'm not trying to reiterate this, but on the staffing side, it does include the furlough day, which was a $1.1 million savings for us for next year. On the non-staffing side, just some small contributions here that are helping our situation. The state retirement decreased from 12.27% to 12% flat. The ACR or alternative contribution rate for those that are retired and rehired also was reduced. We are using the Valley Schools Employee Benefit Group reserves to the tune of $2.26 million. We are not proposing to change our utility allocation, even though there is a rate increase with APS. Our utility management program has been successful in mitigating those increases. So we think that the budget will be acceptable to be able to even handle the rate increases. I might check back in on those folks in 6 months just to make sure I'm keeping them honest, if nothing else, right? We didn't change any of the discretionary funding allocation numbers for both the district or the schools, but there was a school discretionary reduction just due to the fact that it is allocated on a per pupil basis. And again, we are anticipating 900 fewer students for next year. We did not change property liability insurance, although that is our insurance lines have been increasing due to factors outside of our control with a lot of the major catastrophes that have happened across the country and maybe even across the world, liability insurance is much more difficult to get now than it was 5 years ago, and when you can get it, it is much more expensive. So I only mention that for future consideration, that the board might have to make an adjustment to that. But thankfully, we do have a net position when it comes to both to all of our Valley Schools accounts that will help us in at least the short term. And then the capital budget is established, and that's 75% of the formula amount that you see there, the $13 million. Just real briefly, what happens to the tax rate? We do like to share this when we're doing the proposed budget. Yes.
Question. On the, using the 2.26 million of the Valley Schools employment benefit reserves, how big is that reserve? How much is in that reserve? If we're taking 2.26 million out of it, how much is that reserve?
President Carver, Dr. Pack, at the beginning of this year, I believe that number was $20 million. It might have been $17 million. I'd have to go back and look to verify. But we are using a portion of it in this current year. So I just received the loss report run on Monday, and I think it's going to probably use somewhere close to $4 million of the $20 million, but I'd have to confirm the numbers for you. And the Valley Schools does recommend about a 25% net position at the end of each fiscal year, because there is something called a run out. So if somebody goes to the hospital on June 30th, we still owe that bill under the June 30th. And those bills won't get received until October or November. So, just the way the medical billing works. So, they do recommend a minimum of 25% in terms of the actual balance that we would maintain at any given time.
Okay, thank you.
Also, because we're self-insured, we do have stopgap measures like stop loss coverage, but we pay for every claim.
Well, when does stop loss kick in?
I'm sorry?
At what dollar amount does stop loss kick in?
President Carver, Ms. Fisher, the stop loss is, I believe, $400,000. That's per incident, but there are carve-outs for that. So if we do have somebody that has a chronic illness, it's $400,000 per incident, and one incident could be over multiple years. And so we only get the stop loss for the first, beyond the first $400,000. The second year, we get the full tab. All right. Any additional questions? The rest of this is tax rate stuff, which is fun. Fun for me, I guess. So I am trying to predict the tax rate. So and there's a lot of information here. I'm not going to read all that to you. Really, the bottom line is it's a calculation that's got a kind of a crystal ball to it right now that's very foggy as to what the actual will be. This is going to be pretty close to what it should look like. And we are expecting the tax rate to go down because we're going to have additional cuts or less resources for next year. We get a majority of our, or about half of our funding from property taxes. The other half comes from state general fund or equalization assistance. We are projecting that you see there towards the bottom of the screen about a 7-cent reduction to the primary tax rate. So about 327 down to 320. The secondary tax rate, a 21% reduction down to about $1.75. Again, most of that reduction on the secondary tax rate is due to the reduction of the M&O override. Remember, it's being cut in by a third. So the net impact on what would be the average assessed valuation residential parcel, which right now is $283,000. Remember, that's not the price of the home. That's the limited assessed valuation. So that home's going to be closer to $500,000, $450,000 to $500,000 in maybe market value. Would be a decrease of about $102 or just under 10%. This is what that looks like. So you can see the tax rate for last year, as well as the what we're projecting in that $3.20 and that $1.75. And you can see what the assessed valuation difference is. So what that particular if there was an average assessed valuation home in the district, they would have previously paid $1,053 this year. Next year they would pay $950 due to the reduction. There are two factors that are at play. One is obviously the M&O override decreasing. The other is when we had the bond elections on the ballot, we did reserve some headroom for a bond sale that obviously did not happen without the authorization from the voters. So there is a resulting savings in also the bond tax rate as well. But the majority of that differential on the secondary is the M&O override being reduced by 1/3. And then the final slide I have for you is just the next steps. Again, we have to approve the budgets for it to be.
Interrupt you. And to go back, I just don't want to go back and forget. You had mentioned the net impact on the average assessed value being $102. And I know that's guesstimate. How is that in relation to the $30 a year that was brought up before for the override? Because you said the majority of it is a secondary. They were saying if the override did not pass, the average savings for a homeowner would be $30 a year, but you're coming up with $102 a year.
Again, because there are other factors at play, the assessed valuation has changed. So our the assessed valuation is limited to grow at 5%, but we have also had appreciation of assessed valuation. So essentially what's happening is the levy amount stays the same. It's kind of like maybe a mortgage, a fixed rate mortgage. So it's a set dollar amount that we're paying off on these bonds, but we're dividing that over a increased assessed valuation wealth. And so that is a variable that's contributing to some of the reduction. So there's the average assessed valuation home is paying a little less because somebody else is also paying that didn't pay last year. And then we did have a small reduction in the secondary tax rate due to the bond schedule also decreasing.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe I should pause after every slide, but I only have one more slide. So.
I can I'm going to summarize a little bit too about the unknown variables in the equation. Obviously the biggest one is the loss of students. We've been able to beat the demography report every year. So this is the high side. We think it's going to be. We don't think we're going to hit that. So that could be a variable for next year as well. If we only lose 600 instead of 900, then obviously that's a variable in the equation. The second big variable in the equation is inflation. We don't know what it's going to do. Is it going to take off, stay the same, get worse? Don't know. That impacts fuel, electricity. I mean, our Cheerios we buy in the cafeteria. So that all, in fact, is a variable as well. The third variable is our legislature. If we're number 49th in the nation for support for public ed financially, and I imagine we're probably going to keep that position. I don't think we're going to burn up the charts and start climbing. So that's a variable in the equation. And the last variable is obviously what's happening at the federal level. So this budgets in general, especially in the school world, we are victims of the wind. Whatever, how powerful it is, how powerful the storm is, which direction it's blowing, et cetera, et cetera. These are variables we do not have control over. And so that's why we do what's called an educated guess. And that's why you see, at least in my tenure here and Jim's tenure here, is why you should see you shouldn't see a deficit at the end of the school year, because we know when we start to see the wind change, we make adjustments. We knew by November 8th that we had to start tightening the belt this year, getting ready for a possible 27 and 26. So that's why you're seeing the dollars at the end of the rainbow, as Mr. Carver alluded to. So as a machine, we can make some changes during the race, and we obviously have done that this year, and this is a fruit of that labor. And that's our staff in general helping with the cause as well. But there are still many variables to the equations we do not know. You mentioned the many houses that are coming. We're still getting notices once a month, mainly infills, but the big project next to the factory that will take, it's another town's going to come out of the ground, and that's going to take a while. We just know that also President Trump just dropped another $100 billion on that project. So that project's going to double, and so it probably will be even have a greater impact over time.
And I just want to commend the administration, Jim especially. I've only been around for a few years now, but what I've noticed is that in Deer Valley, we write our budgets in worst case scenario. Like we're budgeting a loss of 900 children based off of graduation rates and graduating kindergartners coming in. We obviously can't take into account child for child, all of those that will come over from other districts or transfers back from homeschooling or charters or whatnot. But we write the budget based on the worst possible scenario, so that when we get these kisses, we're in a positive situation, which would probably be what some of the sister districts in the county that have run into legal trouble with their money failed to do is, and for any of us that do it personally, it would be bad business to spend your money before you have it. And from what I've seen, the state usually always gives us our money in arrears, right? So we always have to have money to start with, because the state doesn't give us our money until after the 100th day based on enrollment. So where do we get that money to start with if we don't always have a carry forward? The concept, and I'm kind of addressing the community here for those of them that are listening, is that a lot of folks see when we talk about carry forwards and cash balances and all these different buckets that have money left over in them, the public education system is not built in a fashion where we can have what's termed zero-based budgeting in the business world. We can't budget for $100 million and spend $100 million and expect that we're not going to be in trouble sometime in the very near future by budgeting for every possible dollar that we're going to get. So I just want to commend all your efforts over the years, Mr. Miglerino. I've sat here and watched the presentations for 3 years now, and I wouldn't want your job, but you do an amazing job doing it. So thank you for all that you've done. And just wanted to get that in before I forgot.
Thank you very much. I usually have a disclaimer when we talk about budgets. The budget is the guess, right? Kind of how we think we're going to spend our money. If you really want to know what happened, the autopsy happens in October, the annual financial report. Okay, that tells you exactly how we spent the money. The budget is just a guess. It's even more of a guess since we're on current year funding, because the major variable that determines the resources that we get is the number of students, and we're guessing at a number at this point. And like I said, it'll take a year for us to really know what that number is. But I appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
Is that all you've got for us tonight?
Yeah.
Actually,
Did you review the next steps?
Yes, he did.
Okay. I just want to state for everybody here and listening, I will not be in attendance on June 10th. I'm undergoing a full knee replacement on June 9th, so I will not be phoning in either because I'll be on drugs. So just so my board members know, and I might be listening though. All right, thank you.
I think we should make her call in for our own entertainment.
Those drugs are truth serum. We might be able to find some stuff.
It'll have you up and walking on the 9th.
Oh, I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see me on the 24th.
Yeah.
I'll have a walker, but you'll see me.
I'm sorry, Ms.
So-
Fisher, did you have a comment?
Yeah, you're decreasing, decreasing the school discretionary budgets, the 38.4. One of the things a constituent brought to me, and it was kind of weird, it was actually a friend of mine that's at ADE, and they saw something from a teacher who was doing a GoFundMe or something. It's like, why aren't you guys drawing down on Title VI? Do we have a Title VI grant that we're not drawing down on? What is a Title VI? I don't think I've ever heard of that one.
Yeah, President Carver, Ms. Fisher, we do have Title VI-B, which is the IDEA, the Special Education Grant.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be something we could drop down or draw down on for teacher supplies unless it's specific to SPED.
Yeah,
So-
there is a supplanting rule, a maintenance of effort
Right.
calculation for that federal grant, Title 6B. But no, I don't believe we have a Title 6 grant, but we do have a Title 6B grant, which is
We might want to look. I don't know. Like I said, they were with, and I've looked at it, Title VI, and I thought, well, maybe I flipped my numbers. So I looked at Title IV to see if,
Was it a similar district to Deer Valley or rural or?
Department of Education.
Oh,
And they were asking why we weren't drawing down on it, and I'm like, I don't know.
no, they don't
Because
know
it was
either.
specific, something that teachers could utilize for supplies and things of that nature. So it might be something for us to look into, kind of look at what grants we do have and potential to draw down on them. Because I don't know. I hadn't heard of that one before, and I'll ask for clarification. But the other thing that I would like to have or to know would be to know what kind of grants we do have, what we're utilizing, what our teachers could utilize, where we could potentially kind of even out, if there is any, and I don't know. Grants are one of those things that you get them or don't, and so if there is anything like that, it would be good to know as well when we're considering looking at what we're cutting or not cutting, or potential what needs to be cut.
Yeah, President Carver, Ms. Fisher, I will say that just a shout out to Dr. Burbach and his crew that manages our federal grant programs, and just so that I can maybe embarrass her if she would be listening, Miss Lisa Crane, who does that work for us. They do an excellent job of leveraging that and working with all the various departments to make sure that those funds are deployed in the best possible way to serve the needs of our students. And there is a great deal of uncertainty as to how, the amount or level of the funding for those going forward. So we are hedging a little bit just to make sure that that doesn't create a financial hardship for us. But we are still counting on those funds to continue the services that we use those funds to be able to support the needs of our students.
Well, if she's watching, I will give her kudos just for the sheer fact that she logs into that nasty federal system and tries to download any reports on her grants at all. Because I used to do that for Health and Human Services to reconcile the grants, and that system is just stupid. It's just, it's awful.
It's a cluster right now. It's really a mess from our perspective.
Dr. Pack?
In reference to the Friday update about some land being for sale, is that going to work into this in the next month?
President Carver, Dr. Pack, yeah, this is kind of hot off the press, so I appreciate you asking the question. I received information from our attorney late this afternoon that we will have on the next board agenda information regarding a resolution to sell one of the parcels of lands that we have in our inventory. This parcel is near 83rd Avenue and Happy Valley. It is not included in this plan, but it would. The sale itself could generate funds that we could use for other capital needs of the district if the voters did approve it. So what would be the board's decision is whether or not to include it on the, it does require a vote of the people to sell real property or to sell this piece of land. The decision for this board would be whether or not to put it on the November 2025 election. We originally wanted to do what's called a land exchange, or sometimes referred to in slang as a swap, like trade this piece of land for another piece of land. This particular piece of land is on the side of a mountain. Not most of it is not buildable, but the parcel to the east of us just recently sold as a Arizona State Land Department auction, and so that developer might have an interest in the buildable part of our 20 acres, and so this is just a convergence of timing that is probably the best opportunity for us to divest ourselves of this. Otherwise, the parcel is landlocked, and once that development is built, and probably will diminish the value of it even further.
So if the people decide to vote in favor of selling it, what could that potentially be as far as income for our district?
President Carver, Dr. Pack, it would whatever the sale price would be, and there's a process for that in which we have to get a formal appraisal, but we do have an estimate of value somewhere between $4 or $4.5 million is the current estimate would generate proceeds that we could use for capital purposes for the district. The reason that would be usable is because we have a very low bond indebtedness, meaning that the ratio of bond debt that we have to our assessed valuation is below the 14% that's in statute. That means that those funds can be used. Otherwise, it would have to go to reduce the tax burden for the taxpayers.
So we don't have to still defease the bonds with that revenue? I thought we did.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
I
that.
thought we did have to pay the tax debt down with that. It's like it wasn't an option.
President Carver,
changed?
Ms. Fisher, you would if we were over the percentage threshold, which is 7% for a non-unified district or 14% for a unified district, which is ours. Our bond indebtedness right now is just just over 5%, between 5 and 6%. So those proceeds would be usable for capital, future capital needs, not included in this plan because the decision has not been made, and the property has not been even sold. It would just give us the ability to sell the property if the voters were to approve it.
Okay, and then just to follow up, you said this piece of property in our inventory. How many other pieces of property do we have
There are,
that could be sold?
I'm sorry.
That one was donated, so that one's different than she's talking probably really about the ones allocated, the X from the state. So how this one's different.
Yeah. So one of them's a reservation, so we don't own it. It's a reservation that we have with the Arizona State Land Department. So I don't know how you want me to classify that. We couldn't sell it.
Okay.
One of them is contingent that could only be built as a school. And we own it, but it has a deed restriction to it. And then this parcel, and I think that's all of them. So I think there's a total of 3, 2 of which we would not be able to sell. This one we would.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Miglorino tonight? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 7:18. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.